Welcome to Bridging the Bay, the podcast where we connect the people, ideas, and partnerships shaping the future of real estate and community across Tampa Bay. I'm your host, Quan Rimmer, and in every episode, we explore how leadership, innovation, public service, and collaboration are influencing where and how we live. We're recording live from the Fabre Framework Studio because every property has a story, and how that story is told matters. Fabre Framework specializes in real estate photography that highlights what buyers need to see clearly and honestly. Learn more at FabreFrameworks.com. Joining me today as a special co-host is Joe Farrell, Vice President of Government Affairs and RPAC for the Suncoast Tampa Association of Realtors. Joe leads STAR's advocacy efforts on behalf of our members, working with elected officials and community leaders to advance policies that protect private property rights, promote home ownership, and strengthen our communities. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Quan. I'm glad to be here and excited to hear from these two leaders that are out there in the community, serving on the behalf of our members, and more importantly, for the citizens of Florida.
Yes. Today's conversation, it focuses on something that affects every neighborhood, every family, every business. Local leadership. The decisions made by our local elected officials influence everything from housing, economic development, to education, infrastructure, public safety, and the overall quality of life that makes Tampa Bay such a great place to live. And for realtors, these decisions also shape the communities where our clients choose to buy, sell, invest, and build their futures.
Yes, and joining us today, we have two Realtor champions with us. First, we have Mollyana Ward, who's running for school board in Pasco County District 3. And also we have Brandi Gabbard running for mayor of St. Petersburg. Two very different places, but today we'll discuss leadership, community partnerships, housing, education, the future of their communities, and these are things that cross borders and as topics and issues. So Brandi, Mollyana, thank you for being with us for Bridging the Bay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we talk about your campaigns, I would love for the listeners to get to know the people behind the candidates. Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves? What experiences have shaped your leadership journey and what ultimately inspired each of you to pursue public service? Either one of you can go first.
Well, again, I am Mollyana Ward, and I am running for Pasco County School Board for District 3. I am a mother, I'm a grandmother, I am a business leader, and I have been a lifetime advocate for children and families. I was raised by a single mother who immigrated here from Colombia legally, and she raised me to persevere, and she also showed me what quiet service looked like. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people will enter a forum like this in hopes of gaining recognition. But what she taught me was service happens behind the scenes. And as a young girl, she would often bring food to some of our neighbors, take our elderly neighbors to the doctor appointments. We had a neighbor and she would go and clean her home because she was disabled. And that was just the example that she gave me. So from a very early age, that just led to a service-oriented mindset for me. I've been an advocate, as I mentioned, my whole life, adult life. And we even fostered a little boy about 10 years ago, too. So it's really just kind of infiltrated every part of who I am as an adult.
Well, running for City of St. Petersburg Mayor, my name is Brandi Gabbard, and kind of came to this work not only from a background in real estate, spending over 20 years in the real estate industry. A lot of that work that I did on the real estate side of leadership was really geared towards advocacy. Advocating for homeownership, advocating for specifically affordable and attainable flood insurance, which is very important to our coastal neighborhoods. And that work really set me up to have the honor of serving for 9 years on our city council. And so I come to this work not only from that lens of a business person, but also a mother and someone who coincidentally was also raised by a single mother and raised a lot by my grandparents in a small town where community was very important to us. No one did anything on their own in the town that I grew up in. We were very interconnected. And then moving to Florida for an opportunity when I was in my 20s, that really gave me a lens as to how to bring community to some of our dense urban neighborhoods. And so, really just following that path through the last decade of public service, I've really felt a calling over the course of the last couple of years to take that leadership to the next level in the role of mayor, which in our city of St. Petersburg is an executive level. And so really bringing it all together. The business experience, the community experience, the experience of being a mother, and the experience of public service to come together to try to lead our city forward.
Love it.
Okay, very good. Leadership is often about recognizing an opportunity to serve, but it's also about earning the trust of the people you want to serve. What called you to leadership in these roles that you're running for, and why should people trust you as their leader in the future?
Well, I certainly would be glad to talk about that because a cornerstone of my campaign is centered around transparency and accountability to the residents that we serve. Because I have been in City Hall as a city council member under 2 administrations, I have seen over the years how kind of that voice of everyday people has become a little watered down in City Hall. The decisions that we make at the local level directly impact the things that people do, the businesses that exist in our city, how people build, how people create generational wealth. That is all, really influenced by what happens in local government. And so I believe that there is a role to play as the executive of the city, as the mayor, to make sure that we are putting people at the heart of everything that we do, and making sure that when we're passing those policies, that we are passing them to better people's lives.
Well, and I think it's interesting as realtors, we tend to have a certain skill set, and one of those skills is communicating with others, and also bringing collectively to the table a common goal, right? At the end of the day, whether you're on a buyer's side or a listing side, we want to help them both purchase a home and sell a home, and everyone wants to get along. So that certainly has taught me a lot about that collaborative, space. And so being on a school board, not as an executive, not in a leadership role in the sense that you would be, but working collectively together with my peers under the supervision of the superintendent, I think communication is super important. And those who know me from my experience serving on our local boards with STAR and before we had mergers and also on the Florida directors, they know that I ask questions and I'm certainly not a rubber stamp. At the end of the day, transparency is super important, as you mentioned, and we are accountable to those who pay the taxes, which we are also taxpayers. And so we want to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible. I'm looking forward to personally getting into the budget and finding out what are things being spent on. Another thing that we're really good at is negotiating. Like, let's look at vendor opportunities to negotiate and save some funds there for the district. Let's find out what actually has a return on the investment, and how do you see that with schools and with children, with their grades, their ability to graduate, with their testing scores. We've done a great job in Pasco County with our graduation rates. We are an A-rated school district for the first time since 2009. That's huge. But we still have more work to do, and we need to see the math scores come up, and we need to see those reading scores come up. One of the things that I want to see happen is to put more paper back in the classroom and reduce the amount of screen time and the amount of distractions that students are faced with. And I think in doing so, I think we're going to see some positive results.
If I could, the thing I heard her say that I always try to kind of share with people as realtors running for office is how many transferable skills we have, right? I mean, the things that we do in our business like you mentioned, communicating, negotiating, being able to be kind of the convener of different sides of an issue.
Right.
I think all of that is so important to how we lead our communities.
I
So,
agree.
yeah, a lot of
Good
synergy
point.
there.
Public service also comes with difficult decisions. Every leader eventually faces a moment that will test their judgment. Can you share a leadership experience that has challenged you and what you learned from that experience that you'll carry into public office? Mollyana, you'll go first.
A leadership experience that has challenged. Honestly, this whole experience has challenged me. I have never run for a public office before. I've never put myself on the line in such a vulnerable way before publicly, and you have to be resilient, which I've learned. I was widowed in 2019, which you guys know, and it certainly taught me a lot about resiliency. And interestingly, at the worst times in your life, people also like to say terrible things. So I definitely have walked through that. Being available morning, noon, and night. I think that as realtors, again, it's something that we're prepared to do, right? We don't particularly set office hours, and just being available all the time is something that I think is really important for someone who's in office. So, I mean, really, just the experience that I'm going through now is certainly shaping me, and you have to have a thick skin for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about resiliency. Resiliency, I mean, we talk about it a lot when, in the city of St. Petersburg, specifically around things like infrastructure and stuff like that. And I know we're going to get into it, but I look at resiliency also as an internal quality, right? And are you resilient enough to be able to take those hits or take those tragic moments and really find the strength to kind of pull everyone up with you? The city of St. Petersburg, obviously, went through a lot in the last few years, specifically after the storms of 2024. And the district that I represent being heavily influenced by almost every single neighborhood, businesses impacted. And I think in those moments, trying to find ways to continue to carry forward, at the same time absorbing the trauma that people were going through, and not everyone in those moments. A lot of people are very grateful that you're there to help them, but a lot of people also have a very negative, lash out whenever these things happen to people, and being able to navigate that to really make sure that I was bringing resources to my residents and learning about conflict management and crisis management in real time. Those are very real skills that a mayor has to have. And so I learned a little bit trial by fire, right? I mean, I was also on city council during COVID. I've served through some great times for our city, and I've served through some really difficult times. And I think all of that you really show, the quality of your character whenever you're going through those kind of issues.
Very good. All right, Brandi, this one's for you.
Mm-hmm.
As mayor, how do you see housing, economic development, quality of life working together to ensure that St. Pete continues to be the place where people want to live, work, and play?
Well, I mean, all of those, I think, are, really kind of legs of a stool that we have to be working on all of them simultaneously in order to help people be able to continue to afford to live in a city like St. Petersburg. When I first ran in 2017 for city council, I ran on a platform of affordable housing. And I did that because at that point in time, I didn't see a lot of people talking about that issue for St. Petersburg. And as a realtor, I was dealing with people every single day wanting to start a life in our city and not being able to afford to do that. And that was a decade ago. And so, I ran on that platform. I have been very proud to lead some very innovative housing reform at the city of St. Petersburg, housing reform that was some of the first in the state to be passed, some things that have been groundbreaking and innovative. But what I have learned over the years is that it's not just an issue that you can build your way out of. We can't just continue to build unit after unit and then think that that is going to solve the problem. We have real challenges with our coastal neighborhoods, with people being able to maintain their homes in those communities. And some of those have been generational owners that have lost everything. Where do they go? How does that impact affordability? How does the jobs that we're bringing to St. Petersburg make it to where people can afford the housing that we're building? I mean, all of that has to go together, because if you're not looking at affordability through a lens that is more than just building more, then you're never going to even come close to solving the problem.
That's good. Mollyana, this one's for you.
Okay.
Families often tell realtors that schools play a major role in where they choose to buy a home. How do you see the school board contributing to stronger neighborhoods and thriving communities?
Well, I'm just excited to see the success that our district has already experienced in this last year since Dr. Legg, under his leadership. And, like you said, parents, families, they look at school ratings. It is shown that higher school ratings, higher school districts increase property value and maintain property value, to the point where you've seen when they do redistrict, people get very upset very quickly because they're concerned about obviously a few things: their children, their education, and also their property values as well. Some people purchase neighborhoods specifically for a specific school. So it's definitely a conversation in real estate that we've always had. So I think it's important that we continue that good work and we maintain those good grades that we have, and just keep. The other thing too is that, people talk about declining enrollment, and we've experienced declining enrollment in part of our county, whereas the other part of our county has experienced increasing enrollment. So people move to where they want to move, right? And we have to, as a school board, be able to pivot and shift and not just feel like it's one size fits all and this is the way we've always done it, and so this is the way we must always continue to do it. And so I think school choice is a big, an important issue as well. As a mom, when my oldest son was struggling in the school system, we were dealing with the IEP, and that was a nightmare to navigate. And that's one of the reasons that led me to make the school choice. And at that point, we were in a different county and we chose to homeschool. And I did that because I wasn't finding the resources that I needed to help my son succeed in school. I was the product of I was directionless. Let's just say that. I was directionless in high school. I was a teen mom, did not get my high school diploma with my class. I went back and got my GED, created businesses. I opened up a family child care business, became accredited. I ended up leading a family child care association in Central Florida, and so kind of forging my own way. So part of the reason I'm running too is to help that student that was like me, who didn't have a direction and who didn't have a path. And I think we do that by obviously making sure that the academics is strong, but also creating pathways that don't just include college. College is a great option. In fact, I just enrolled to go back myself at 50 years old. So I'm very excited to finish what I started, but it's not the only path. As an entrepreneur, someone who's created multiple businesses, not just real estate. I opened up a co-working space during COVID. I've lived what a life looks like outside of that, and there are other paths. I have a son who's in the Air Force. I have a son who is in trades. I have a son who followed after his mother's footsteps in business, and then I have two sons, my bonus sons, who are both in the sports industry, like my husband is as well. So there is no one path, and I just want to make sure that we make sure every student feels like they have a direction.
Perfect.
Very good. Collaboration is essential to solving today's challenges. And this question is for both of you. How do you plan to work with businesses, nonprofits, community leaders, and residents to solve challenges that are facing your community?
Well, again, we talk about, bringing that skill set to the table. I have always had great success in being a collaborator and a convener. I've served on the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council for 9 years. That's a great example. Literally, their entire motto is being the convener around our region to be able to solve complex challenges. And was very happy to chair that council a few years back. And I think that, relationships and making sure that you create space for people to bring different viewpoints is very important to the work that we do. And I have even, been one in my time on city council when there was a community group maybe that didn't agree with the position that I was taking. We were maybe on kind of the opposite sides of something. Being the one, even as the elected person in the relationship, being the one to reach out and say, hey, I know we don't maybe agree on this, but could we sit down and talk about it? Because I want to hear your point of view. I think that is a skill set that I bring that is different than anyone else running in the race, because I'm not necessarily afraid of people telling me maybe I'm wrong. Right? I think that sometimes the best policy work comes whenever two people who didn't agree up front sit down together, have an open conversation, an honest conversation, hear each other, and then ultimately maybe you agree to disagree, or maybe somewhere in there you can find where better policy can really make that impact that you were wanting to make from the beginning, just in a different way that you hadn't thought about.
So collaboration, again, that has been the key word. Can you repeat the question? We'll cut that out.
Collaboration is essential to solving today's challenges. How do you plan to work with businesses, nonprofits, communities, organizations, and residents to solve challenges and create opportunities?
So I'm actually very excited about this question because I believe that one of the things that makes me uniquely qualified for this position against my other opponents is my out-of-the-box thinking and being someone that's led businesses. And for example, we have a bus crisis in Pasco County. We do not have enough bus drivers, so our transportation is suffering. We have students who, and I've attended a number of board meetings where I've heard parents come and talk about their children being left on the side of the road because the bus didn't show up, and they try to communicate through the app, but unfortunately when you don't have enough people to cover these routes, if someone doesn't show up, there's no one to drive the bus. And so that's not okay. That's a safety issue. That's a workforce issue. Parents can't concentrate. Students, I know that if I have a rocky start to my day, it could throw my whole day off. I can't imagine, you're a young child and you're late for school and then the teacher has to figure out where to catch you up. So there's a lot of things involved with that. And one of the solutions that I bring is partnerships with other organizations. Pasco has done a great job already of partnering with groups like Advent Health and Baycare in order to create accredited programming and certificates that they can graduate with. Well, why not take it a step further? There are other counties and other states who have sponsorship and community engagement with groups like Advent Health, for example, and they sponsor the bus. And my husband is in the hockey business, and people pay a lot of money to put their name on a building, and they pay a lot of money to put their name on a Zamboni. So when you think about things like that, there's no reason, as long as you're following proper safety protocol, that you can't partner with groups like this to create solutions that are non-taxpayer funded solutions and solves some really big problems.
What do you believe is the biggest opportunity facing your community over the next 4 years, and how would you approach it?
Well, again, we've had tremendous growth in our state and in our county. And I think that's an opportunity, but it's also a challenge. As I mentioned earlier, we've had declining enrollment on part of the county, and we've had increasing enrollment to the point of overcrowding in some situations in another part of the county. So what does that look like? Well, transportation could be a resolution, right, in busing children to a school that they need to go to, but also rethinking the model. We've had a number of K-8 schools that have opened up in Pasco County, and this serves and solves a number of problems. It solves a transportation problem. When you have 3 children in school and you can go to one location, that keeps people off the road, and you only need one bus driver. And it also creates a sense of community within that school too. So if you're there for 8 or 9 years, you know the teachers, you know the administrators. There's just a level of involvement that parents can participate in that you may not even see in other schools. So I think just thinking outside the box, giving parents options, continuing the the paths and the tracks that a lot of our schools offer. So if you're interested in welding, you can get certified in welding. If you're interested in being an electrician, if you're interested in going off into the medical field, even entrepreneurship, there's a path for entrepreneurship now, for media, anything that you can think of, they're building on those ideas. So I think just being able to shift and not say, this is the way we've always done it, and this is the way we have to do it. Being able to think outside the box, I think is a key.
Perfect. We'll take a quick break and be right back with more of Bridging the Bay, recorded live from the Fabre Framework studio. Fabre Frameworks, your listings are a reflection of your brand. And Fabre Frameworks helps realtors elevate both through consistent professional real estate photography that builds trust with buyers and sellers alike. Learn more at FabreFrameworks.com. It's Brandi.
Yes.
What do you believe is the biggest opportunity facing your community over the next 4 years, and how would you approach it?
Well, the biggest opportunity, as I see it, is probably the historic gas plant site. It is the 86 acres of which Tropicana Field and its surrounding asphalt currently resides. That is been something that for quite a few years our city has been involved in trying to redevelop. And I think that, both as a current city council member and as the future mayor, looking at, what are those opportunities and what really can we do to make sure that we are not just selling that to the highest bidder, but that we are really finding a way to make that redevelopment reap the best community benefits possible for our city. We are a built-out city. We're not making more land. And this will probably be the largest opportunity for us to redevelop and create an entirely new community. But we have to remember that that site is, it has a rich history in our city. There is a lot of broken promises that happened to the previous descendants of that site because it was a vibrant Black community. And we cannot forget that in the quest for there to just be prosperity or a legacy project. We have to make sure that we're honoring those past promises, but that we're also looking for ways that we can incorporate better jobs, better economic opportunity. We're most likely not going to have a baseball team there. And so this is our first opportunity to have this conversation knowing that we don't have that anchor tenant involved. So I've been pressing for us to do a community planning exercise to really get the voices of the community focused into what we decide to do there and hopefully answer that age-old question that we have yet to ask, which is, should we even sell the site at all? Or maybe should we keep it as a city, or at least part of it, for assets that we may need into the future? Those are kind of those lingering questions, and how we ultimately end up answering them and then how we move forward with that redevelopment will shape St. Petersburg for generations to come.
Very good. All right, well, this question is for both of you again. Public trust is earned through accountability and transparency. How do you plan to build and maintain that with the future residents you plan on serving in your next roles?
Well, I'll speak on what Pasco has currently in existence. They have a really great dashboard. They call it the data dashboard, and it's available for parents to go online and look at spending, communication from the district to the parents. But it's only as good as it is if parents don't know it exists. So where I'm a big believer in transparency, I love simple ways to communicate, and that's probably the teacher side of me too. Infographics, things that are digestible. We've done a great job at some of that, but I think we can do a better job at that, as well as getting the message out to the parents so that the parents know where to look. I will say this too. I love that the school board meetings, they have a morning meeting and they have an evening meeting. So it really does meet real people where they are, who are working parents who aren't always able to go on a Tuesday morning. So they do have options. I think that's really important too. And I know that they've hired an amazing staff in this last year or so to really get the message out in the communication side of what Pasco is doing. And you can see that evidence online. You can see it on social media. You can see it through their, even just things as simple as graphics that are consistent and clear and easy to understand. I think all of that is super important. Everything else is, available online. We just need to continue and keep improving.
Yeah, and I think that, there's a role to play, especially for the mayor being the executive of the city, to make sure that you are always honest and that you're ready to really be transparent with the decisions that you make. So many times I think that, it's easy to kind of be insulated and, just kind of stay behind the halls of, your office and, make your decisions and then move on to the next. And what I hear residents saying overwhelmingly is that we just want to know why you're making those decisions, because ultimately every decision that you make, you're spending our tax dollars. And we want to know that our tax dollars are being used for, direct benefit to us. And so I've learned over the years that with most people, it's not necessarily the answer. It's just that you felt the respect for them to actually give them an answer. People can really take a hard truth as long as they believe that it is the truth. And so because that's how I kind of operate in my everyday life, I feel like that is an important quality, is someone who is willing to really answer the questions, give clear communication, give clear direction, and really be able to back up why they made the decision that they made. And I also think, when you are the leader over a staff of 3,400 people, the buck stops with you. And if you're going to make those decisions, you can't send your people out to be your scapegoat. You have to be willing to stand with them, stand shoulder to shoulder with them and say, this is the reason we made those decisions. And ultimately, I'm the one that made it. So if residents are unhappy, they know that it needs to go to you, as you are the one who ultimately is leading the team.
Every leader has mentors or experiences that have influenced them. Who or what has had the greatest impact on your leadership philosophy?
Well, I mentioned my mother, and I'll mention her again because honestly, she really did have the most impact. She taught me how to show up. She taught me how to own my mistakes when I made them, because I've made mistakes, and stick to whatever decision that you've made, just to follow through with that decision. Perseverance, hard work, dedication, ingenuity, sacrifice, I think too. Parents, when they're balancing their home budget at the kitchen table, we have a responsibility in the school board to take their money very seriously. And I believe that, in today's age, people are not used to saying no to things. And even young people, I find too, have an expectation of having that dream home when they go out and look for the first time. But that's not the way it is, right? So we have to be able to sacrifice. And I think it starts with our own personal sacrifice and that philosophy, and just looking at what things work, what things don't work, and being able to make those difficult decisions. And I did learn a lot of that from my mother. So when she watches this, she's going to have to get the tissues.
Well, I'll take maybe the professional spin, because I think we all have influences in our lives, right? Growing up, and certainly that hard work ethic comes from, being part of a working class family, and, you didn't have anything that you didn't work for. So, I certainly come with that as well. But since we are on the Realtor podcast, I think it's important to really share that so much of my journey has come from right here within the Realtor organization. organization. I got involved in the realtor world very quickly after becoming a realtor and have spent a good part of my career involved with our organization. And everything that I learned leading up to being on city council as it pertained to being on boards and Robert's rules and how to communicate with, for us, it's members. For me, it's residents. All of that, being accountable to those decisions that you make, learning to work with a team, all of that I cut my teeth on at the Realtor Association. And that never leaves me. I very much believe in that realtor family mentality. And, just like any family, sometimes, things don't always go the way you want them to. And so, learning a lot from those opportunities as well. I didn't get every leadership position I went for, or, didn't, necessarily always get that policy pass that I wanted to work on. But having that experience at the local, state, and national level, and especially the work that I did with NAR and FEMA all those years ago around flood insurance and working with, FEMA to make sure that we could insure our communities, that learning experience really is the backbone of everything that I do now as a professional.
All right. A little more personal on this one. What's something about you that voters don't know, but you think helps explain you as a leader?
I know. I'm like,
personal, huh?
I know.
My story has been pretty open for a long time. Yeah. And so I don't know that there's any surprises really, and I've already talked about it here on this podcast too, just being that GED student, it is what it is. It's who I am. It's part of what creates you as a person. Right. And then in addition, losing my husband, and before he passed, I was a stay-at-home mom for a good portion of that, and also homeschooling at that time. And he traveled for work, so he was gone a lot, and I had to figure out how to do things on my own. So I don't remember what I was even talking about. Honestly, I just kind of kept.
I think,
my personal stuff, right?
You made a good point, though, is if you are a pretty transparent person and you don't really hide from who you are, then there aren't really a lot of surprises.
Right.
I always find it's just easier to be upfront. And this is who I am. This is my story. This is, what my experiences are that I bring to the table. Mm-hmm. I think some people, especially, as you spend more and more time in the public eye, people will create a narrative around who they believe you are. And they will create that based upon maybe votes you've taken, a soundbite, or a headline that they read. They don't really know you. Right. And so I think, if anyone doesn't necessarily know me, I think that, one of the things that is important is that I lead with empathy. I think that compassion is very important when you are, especially at the local level. I wish that more people at the state and federal level led with empathy and compassion, but I think that it is very important when you are in local leadership. Because, these are our neighbors. These are the people we see at the grocery store. These are the people our kids are going to school with. And you have to have empathy for what they're going through, because how else are you motivated to create, opportunity to help them if you're not empathetic to the struggles that they have? And so I am an incredibly empathetic person. And some people might say, oh, that makes you weak or vulnerable. I look at it as a strength. I always have. And I don't shy away from that either. I just think it's best to just be who you are. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, the voters will decide if that is the right person for them or not.
And I want to add to what you're saying, too, because vulnerability does not mean you can't make difficult decisions.
Not at all.
And so sometimes those things get confused, as you mentioned. So mm-hmm. want to clarify that because I know that you're a woman who
Mhm.
knows how to make difficult decisions.
Absolutely. Well, I think that vulnerability, to be honest, I mean, when you are okay with being vulnerable, I think that that builds character and
Mhm.
it's a strength. I can't imagine kind of walking through life always with like a shield up. That to me just would not feel genuine. And I try really hard to be a genuine, authentic person, even in moments when it's not maybe politically convenient or personally convenient.
Mhm.
But it's just, quite frankly, it's just easier at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Looking beyond your campaigns, what legacy would you hope to leave if elected?
Well, mine's simple. I want to see kids read and write. I want to see them think critically for themselves. I feel like we have a generation of students who, there was just too much ideology being pushed into the classroom and not enough basic skills. Basic skills, hand to paper. There is an enforcement of knowledge and information when you physically have to write something out. And we've lacked that. And I think we bought this bill of sale when it comes to technology, that this was going to be a better way. Technology is a tool, but it's only as good as the user. And we've got to get back to the basics of education. And that really, career and technical education, great. Solving transportation issues, great. But at the end of the day, these students, they need to know our history. They need to be able to read and comprehend. They need to think critically. They need to have physical education, and movement is good for the mind and the body and the soul. And again, if they're a sedentary, that things aren't flowing the way that they're supposed to flow. So I just want to see kids, I've always said this, we're not raising children, we're raising adults. Because at the end of the day, we all become adults. And who are we leaving behind? And I just want to see kids happy. I want to see them buy homes one day when they are, graduate from high school or graduate from college or enter the workforce. We've had a time here where people, first-time home buyers, were in their early 40s. Like, that doesn't happen. And only recently is that starting to shift again, but it's still not where it needs to be. My youngest son, Jack, he is a plumber. He bought his first house at 23. To be fair, I am a realtor, and I did make him do it. We found a way to do it, and he did it. So he's been a homeowner for 2 years now, and he has pride in that home. And you can see it the way that him and his fiance, they decorated and they care for it, and they want to do things that add value to it. And I just truly believe when you own something in your community, when you are invested into that community, you are a better community member, you're a participant, you're part of the conversation, and you just care. So I just want to see these kids grow up to be caring, well-rounded, functional, awesome adults.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you would mention kids, because kind of the first thing that came to my mind was, of course, kids, and especially young girls. I think that we talk about legacy, and I think for a lot of people, especially, when you're on like a city council or when you're a mayor, they kind of think about like putting their names on buildings and things like that, right? And to me, that's not a legacy. Like, a legacy is what you imprint on other people. And so, I've had a lot of opportunities over the years where like a Girl Scout troop or, a group of young girls will want to come to City Hall and do a tour. And me and my legislative aide, also a woman, will gladly take them and show them all of City Hall, put them behind the dais, let them bang that gavel, because what you want to do is you want to empower young girls to be able to say, I can do that someday. And especially I think that there are so many kids who, maybe they're growing up in a situation where they don't have a lot, their families don't have a lot, they're living paycheck to paycheck. That's how I grew up. And I think that, showing them that there is a better path. You have to grab opportunity. You have to be willing to work really, really hard for it. But no one, when they are born into a situation, has to have that as their outcome. There is always another path. And so if you could leave any legacy, that is the legacy that I think we should all be looking to leave, is to show young kids that you can have more, you can do more. It's just all about how hard you're willing to work for it.
Very good. All right. It's funny you said raising adults. That's the second time I've heard that today, but that was from a broker who I will leave anonymous, speaking about their agents and not in the same way you were speaking about it. But
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
Jeff.
that was, yeah. You did.
As a broker, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, let's go through the lightning round now.
Can I do one thing?
No,
Because I didn't get to talk to I didn't get to talk about the teachers, and I just want to say this because none of this functions without teachers. And teachers, there's a referendum on the table right now for Pasco County, and it is not a new tax, but it is something that's in place that if it goes away, teachers are the ones who are going to suffer. And I'm not someone who wants to raise taxes. I don't want to create new taxes. I want to get into the budget, and I want to figure out ways that we can save money and pay teachers more. But in the meantime, teachers don't need to suffer, because without them, the system doesn't work. We need teachers to teach our children. So we need to pay them more, and we need to make sure that we retain quality teachers so we don't lose them to other counties. No, I won't say who, but it's super important, right? Without the teachers, this just doesn't work. So I just wanted to make sure that I say that for the teachers.
Well, as the husband of a teacher and the son of a teacher, I 100% agree.
Okay.
And I'll make sure they heard that.
Okay.
So lightning round, we'll have a little fun stuff here. First off, coffee or tea?
You know the answer to this. Coffee.
I mean, I don't know any.
Coffee. I don't know that there's another choice. The
Yeah.
question really is hot or cold.
Oh, yeah. It depends on the time of day.
That's a
Never
good
cold,
point. As
only
a realtor
hot.
podcast, coffee is basically what fuels the industry. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Lately, both. But I'm not a morning person by nature.
Yeah.
This is more for my own information here. Favorite local restaurant?
So I could name a few, but I wanted to pick something in my area. It's a little hidden gem. It's called Latitude 28. The food is fresh. Have you been there?
Yeah.
Get out. Get out.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
See, and it's in a very like nondescript little shopping center that you'd pull in and you go, well, where are we going to eat? But the food is amazing. The owner, it's just a great little restaurant.
Mine is dependent upon type of food. So I'll go with either Cafe Chibo, Thai Am, or Noble Crust.
Okay. All right.
We have a Noble Crust
I
in
mean, I'm
Wesley
saying
Chapel.
is
You
Noble
do, but
Crust-
mine's original.
I know,
Yeah.
into yours.
Mine's the firstborn. So
St.
yes.
Pete restaurants seem to find their way around, so that's okay. I love
That's
St.
that
Pete food.
St. Pete
Yep.
entrepreneurial spirit.
Yep.
All right. Favorite place to relax in the community with your family when you have downtime? Assuming you have ever had downtime.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
we bought a house on a lake on an acre and a half for
There
that
you go.
very reason. We renovated our kitchen. We have what is lovingly called a big island in the middle. It's a BAS. I'll leave the middle initial
There
out.
you go.
And the whole purpose is so. I mean, we have 6 grandchildren now. I mean, when they come over, and they run around the island, and I just love spending time with our family. So that was the whole point of the house.
Well, mine is probably on a baseball field. I'm raising a baseball player. So we spend a lot of family time on a baseball field. But if not, I would say probably somewhere in one of our parks along the waterfront or enjoying the water. My husband and I got engaged on, Vinoy Park. And so it's just a lot of memories there. And so, yeah, that's certainly a very special place to us.
All right. How about this one? What's one book or podcast or non-mother person who influenced your leadership?
Who's
I feel like that was
influenced my
directed towards me.
leadership. Oh my gosh.
Well, not just leadership though, right?
Yeah.
Anything. Really.
I mean, honestly, Jim Rohn was someone that I read at a very early age. And a phrase that he is quoted for is begin with the end in mind. And that is just something that has always kind of stuck out with me. Like, think about the results that you want and start with that. And it's kind of like the other thing too is think about what you want people to say at your funeral. But that one's a little bit more morbid.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
That guy said this, both of those?
No.
Okay.
He only said the begin with the end in mind.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I think I tend to look more towards women who have kind of navigated some really difficult, I would go almost even to Michelle Obama, for instance. She has taken hit after hit after hit on who she is and who people think she is as a person, right? Yet she continues to rise. And so how do you kind of emulate that strength of women who have been in the spotlight point for a really long time. I think that tends to be who I kind of look towards, those sort of women.
All right. If you weren't pursuing public office and everything, what other form of public service do you think you would focus on instead of that?
Well, I don't think I'll stop doing the things that I do in public service. I serve on the board of directors for Bridging Freedom, and they help restore the childhoods of girls who have been the victims of sex trafficking. And just anything that gives a voice to the voiceless, I kind of find myself drawn to. I want to throw this little real estate story in real quick because it's applicable here. I don't know how much time I have. I'll be fast. I sold a house years ago. And in that situation of selling that home, I discovered a very bad situation for a little boy. And long story short, the grandfather who lived in the home passed away. The grandmother who lived in the home passed away. And another family who lived in the home committed suicide. And then there was a single mother with a little boy who was 4 years old. He was not potty trained. He did not eat properly. There was food on plates on the floor. There was feces in the house. I mean, it was a disaster. And I went home and I told my family, I said, we have to do something. Long story short, it was a friend of a friend whose home I was selling. We ended up taking this little boy in for 6 months after we sold the house, and she went back to another state to kind of sort out her life and figure it out. And we kept him for 6 months, taught him how to read, prepared him for school, potty trained him, got him on a regular schedule. And that was just a very important thing that my family did. It was a very difficult thing, but that's my mindset. And so never bring a stray child or a stray cat or dog into my life because I'll probably take them in.
What was the question? I know, I was lost in the story.
If you weren't pursuing public office, what other form of public service would you continue?
Oh my goodness. Well, I would probably say kind of my environmental work. That is something, leading up to starting to serve in public office. I've always considered myself to be an environmentalist, but then getting involved in so much environmental policy, how that, impacts people's lives. I think, I'd probably kind of lean more into the environmental side of work, and then also veterans issues. One of the very first boards I ever served on was an affordable housing committee that was specifically geared towards affordable housing for veterans. And I think that I would go back and pick up some of that work in honor of the veterans who have served us.
Quickly, in one sentence, what message would you like to leave with the residents you'll be asking to serve this November?
Well, I do believe that I am the most uniquely qualified candidate in this race as a mother, as a grandmother, as a business leader, and as a lifetime child advocate. I bring everything that one would need to the table to be a successful board member, and I believe in transparency, fiscal responsibility, and I have out-of-the-box ideas to solve some real issues without taxpayer dollars. And I hope that you would consider me in our primary election for Pasco County, which is August 18th, and vote for Mollyana Ward for Pasco County School Board, District 3.
Well, I'm running for mayor to restore accountability and transparency and really put people back at the heart of the issues that are plaguing St. Petersburg, working for a more resilient, sustainable, affordable, and livable city where everyone can thrive and feel like they can continue to call St. Petersburg home for generations to come. If that is the kind of positive vision that the voters are looking for to move our city forward, I hope that they will consider me. We do have our primary election August 18th. Top 2 vote getters will go on to the November general. And so I would just ask that they go online, look at my platform, and if my vision is the one that they support, that they will vote for Brandi Gabbard for mayor.
Perfect. And that brings us to the close of today's episode of Bridging the Bay, recorded live from the Fabre Framework studio. Great visuals don't just attract attention. They build trust, tell a story, and create lasting impressions. That's the Fabre Framework's difference, and why real estate professionals across the region trust their photography. Learn more at FabreFrameworks.com. Jill, thank you for joining me as our special co-host and for the important work you do leading STAR's government affairs and RPAC initiatives on behalf of our members.
Thank you, Quan. It's always a privilege to spend any time with you at all, any moments. But especially being here today, and it's great. And it was great being here with both of you, and thank you for being here. I would say to anybody who's watching is that whether you live in St. Petersburg or in Pasco County, please vote for these two women on August 18th. But also, if you're a member anywhere else, they are both Realtor champions. That's not just a term we came up with. That's also a program at the association. If you want to get into public service and run for office, these two both put a lot in at the association and eventually went through that process, and they get extra support and everything in the offices that they're running for because, as you can tell, they are great ambassadors of our association and their communities. So once again, thank you, Quan, for having us, and it's been great.
Thank you, Brandi and Mollyana, for joining us today and sharing
Thank
your
you.
perspectives on leadership, public service, and your vision for the future of our communities. Whether it's supporting strong schools, creating vibrant neighborhoods, protecting property rights, expanding housing opportunities, or fostering economic growth, local leadership has a lasting impact on the places we call home. For realtors, homeowners, business owners, and residents alike, staying informed and engaged helps build us stronger communities and strengthens the connection between public policy and the quality of life we all value. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode of Bridging the Bay as we continue connecting you with the organizations and leaders shaping the future of Tampa Bay. Until next time, I'm Quan Rimmer.
And I'm Joe Farrell.
And remember, when we bridge the Bay, we bring our communities closer together.